This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
In Spokane, Washington, a popular teenager, Russell Evans, intervened in a fight. A few hours later, he was found fatally injured on a lonely road. Was it hit and run or murder? For over a century, fortune hunters have searched in vain for the legendary Lost Adams diggings, a secret mine in Arizona where, according to legend, a vast motherlode of gold awaits some lucky prospector. In 1976, State Department official Bradley Bishop disappeared from his home outside Washington, D.C. Tragically, the next day, the bodies of his wife, his mother, and his 3 young sons were found in a North Carolina coastal park. Brad Bishop is wanted for murder. For every mystery, there is someone, somewhere, who knows the truth. Perhaps that someone is watching. Perhaps it's you. Join me. Spokane, Washington, June 4th, 1989, 1:05 a.m. 2 friends on their way home were startled when their headlights flashed on a body stretched out on the road. 13-year-old Russell Evans had apparently been struck by a car. He was barely alive.
Call 911. Brian, help me!
I kept trying to calm him down because he kept trying to move. And he squeezed my hand a couple times. Not very hard, but just because he hurt. And then he quit talking to me.
Okay, your IV is established.
Blood pressure's 90/50.
Russell was admitted to Sacred Heart Hospital at 1:30 a.m. As his parents stood by, doctors struggled through the night to stabilize his condition.
When I got there, I just wanted to see him, and so I went right to the trauma room. And he was unconscious.
Probably be best for you and him both if you went out to the waiting room for now. I promise we'll keep you posted, okay?
All right. I have an X-ray on him.
Okay, let's get the CT tech in here.
I just knew he wasn't gonna make it.
87.
Okay, and the mask suit legs are up, is that right?
At 9:10 a.m., Russell Evans died.
You know, I'm really grateful that I had those 8 hours, because even though he didn't talk to me, I knew knew I was there. And that was really important to me.
What makes the Evans family's grief even more painful is that to this day they have no idea who was responsible for their son's death or why he was killed. The Spokane police have always maintained that Russell died as a result of a random hit-and-run accident. But a number of unanswered questions point to a more sinister scenario. Russell's parents are convinced that their son was murdered. Russell Evans was an active and popular 8th grader at Libby Middle School in Spokane. By the age of 13, he was already 6 feet 3 inches tall. Russell excelled at basketball and played pickup games every day after school with his friends. He dreamed of one day becoming a pro.
We did everything together. He was at my house every day, and he was very well liked. Had a good sense of humor. And he got along with pretty much everybody, he had no problems.
Rusty had already made plans to go to UCLA, and he wanted to be an electronical engineer, play pro ball. And I mean, he had it all mapped out. He had it all put together, which amazed me.
June 3rd, 1989. In the hours before Russell died, he was with Aaron and other friends hanging out at a local park. It was a typical summer evening until they were approached by two other teenagers. An argument ensued over Aaron's girlfriend.
Hey, man, come here real quick. And what's your name? Aaron. Are you supposed to be going out there? Let me tell you something, man.
Hey, you guys better just take off before there's some real trouble.
And you don't even know what trouble is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, you better watch out because they get some of my homeboys on you. But I didn't really think much of it, you know. So I just turned around and we left, and he got in his car with his friend and took off.
After leaving the park, Russell spent the remainder of the evening at a friend's house. Then he called his father to say that he was heading for home. Around midnight, he ran into another friend, Sade Mattison.
Hey, Russ.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
What have you been up to tonight?
Oh, we were at the park and two guys came up to Aaron and started hassling him.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know who they were?
No, we had him outnumbered though. They took
He
off.
told me that one of his friends almost had gotten in a fight that night, and he was all psyched up about it and telling me how if it would have happened, he would have been one to jump in and he would fight, you know. I gotta get home.
Yeah, so do I. Okay, man. See you later.
I say my goodbyes, and he head off down the street, jogging. And that's the last time I saw him.
It was now approximately 12:30 a.m. Based on evidence found at the scene, the police constructed their version of what happened.
On the impact with the vehicle, he was separated from his shoes, the shoelaces, and other debris. He finally came to rest about 75 feet from where we think he was struck.
From the bruises present on Russell and the other injuries, I think the most prominent possibility here is that we're dealing with a motor vehicle accident, that Russell was struck in the back by a bumper and an ornament.
Dr. Lindholm's report determined that Russell's injuries were consistent with a hit-and-run accident.
We looked at him after he died, and I thought he'd been in a fight. Later on, when the police started talking about hit and run, his mom and I just couldn't buy that. I mean, the injuries weren't there.
Russell was found next to the median strip on Thor Avenue, 2 blocks from his home. His shoes and shoelaces were downhill 86 feet away. 3 separate pools of blood were found as far as 50 feet from where Russell lay. John and Sue Evans obtained copies of the official police report. It contained photos of the pools of blood, the shoes and shoelaces. Oddly, the shoelaces had somehow become separated from the shoes. The police report failed to pinpoint the spot where Russell was found.
Well, Sandy, we want to thank you for coming down. I know it's really hard.
The Evans returned to the scene of the accident with Sandy Ferris, the woman who had found Russell.
Where do you remember the shoes being?
Oh, a question of mine at the crime scene is when I saw those pools of blood over a 35-foot area. In my mind, if somebody was flying through the air after being hit by a vehicle, I don't see how you could leave that much blood.
You see that, huh?
In one of the crime scene photos, where it shows a shoelace scraped off or broken away from the shoe, there is blood on the shoelace. Now tell me, how do you get blood on the shoelace if you're struck and driven out of your shoes and thrown 50 feet down the hill?
He was about right up there.
The Evans became convinced that Russell had been struck by something other than a motor vehicle. They brought in a second pathologist who agreed with the initial ruling, but concluded that Russell had been in a fight before he was killed.
He's right about
This
up in
pathologist came back with the findings that Russell had been in a physical altercation prior to his death. If a body flies through the air, when that body hits the pavement, there would be some massive scraping. Russell did not have this.
Boy, this isn't making a lot of sense, I'll tell you.
If you're hit by a bumper, then the bruise is going to be fairly symmetrical and even. The bruising along his back is not even. It's demarcated, showing an irregular pattern, rather than coming from one object We believe it came from repeated blows, probably from a baseball bat or a 2x4.
Russell's parents came up with their own version of what happened that night.
I think it was a fight going back up the hill. According to his hands, he got his licks in. He had finger marks on his face, finger bruises, I should say, on his face and the side of the nose, finger bruising on his upper arms as though he were being held.
The people that were allegedly involved in the argument with this friend of Russ's were polygraphed because other people were making allegations about them. And they volunteered to take the polygraph because of these rumors that were started by other kids. And they came in, took the polygraph, we interviewed them. They passed the polygraph with flying colors.
John and Sue Evans are convinced that finding an eyewitness will determine what really happened that night. At the crime scene, Sandy Ferris believes that Russell himself provided an important clue.
Russ, can you tell me
When
what
I
happened?
first got there, first thing I asked him was what happened, and he started calling for Brian.
Brian, help me out! Help me!
He said it more like a person was in listening distance, that his friend should have been there. Like he thought his friend was close by. After the police had gotten there and they'd started to put Russell in the ambulance, we saw a boy in white shorts up in the bushes, and he was running up the hill. And I tried to tell the policeman this a couple of times, and he kept telling me to get on the sidewalk. I thought maybe that probably could have been the boy that he was calling for, Brian.
One of Russell's friends was named Brian. And I asked Brian what he was wearing that night, and he said, well, I was wearing white shorts and white t-shirt, but I was nowhere around. Then later down the line, when the police questioned him, he denied owning that kind of outfit.
We've asked for and talked with everyone that we could possibly think of, and our assumption is it was just somebody that was curious, that heard the commotion, that heard the sirens, so went out to take a look.
When Sue Evans arrived at the hospital, the name Brian surfaced again.
How do you want to handle any calls that might be coming in?
Well, I don't want any information given out about him.
Now, someone by the name of Brian's already called concerning his condition.
That's odd. Who would have known about this? Sure. Unless somebody named Brian was at that scene that he was calling for.
There may be one or two that know more than they're telling. And the reason they're probably not telling is that they are afraid for their lives.
It's very hard for me to believe that anyone would want to kill my son. I believe in my mind that it was a fight that got out of hand. However, my child is dead. And I think that some justice should happen.
Next, the poignant reunion of a family who had not seen each other for 17 years. In the past year, Unsolved Mysteries has helped to reunite 9 people with missing relatives or lost loved ones. Tonight, we are pleased to add Leanne Robinson's name to this growing list of happy endings.
How about soup for
In
that?
1972, at the age of 13, Leanne lived in Carson, California with her 3-year-old half-sister Tammy and 5-year-old half-brother Jim. That year, their mother Doris lost her battle with cancer, and at her request, the 3 children moved in with their neighbor Ellen Morrill.
Come on in.
With 6 children in a 2-bedroom house, life at Ellen's home was hectic, but the children were happy. Nevertheless, a social worker assigned to the case decided that Ellen could not provide an adequate home for Leanne, Jim, and Tammy. The social worker felt that Leanne would be better off living with her father in Texas and that Jim and Tammy should be put up for adoption.
I remember feeling immediately that I was gonna, run away, or I was gonna take Tammy and Jimmy. There was just no way I was gonna have us be separated.
Go away for a while, okay?
I remember wanting to fight, but I thought if I just be good and do what everybody tells me to do, then I'll be able to, reunite with them.
I love you both.
A few months later, Jim and Tammy were adopted by a young couple chosen by the Department of Social Services. Leanne never saw or heard from her brother or sister again and has spent the last 17 years trying to find them.
I can't see any reason in this world why we should be separated, why we shouldn't be together. They are my brother and sister. And I'm gonna keep searching until I find them.
Just minutes after her story aired, Leanne Robinson's search came to an end when she received a call at our telecenter from her 22-year-old sister, Tammy. Tammy, who lives in Maine and has 2 children of her own, immediately put Leanne in contact with her brother, Jim, an Army sergeant stationed near Monterey, California. On December 10th, just 4 days after our show aired, Jim and Tammy arrived at Leanne's home in Los Angeles, California, and met their older sister for the first time in more than 17 years.
Oh, I can't even tell you.
I just had a really good feeling that somebody was gonna call in, either they were or somebody that knew them. And today when I first saw them, I felt so close to them. It felt like the 17 years just came together, and then it was just a few days ago that we last saw each other.
For Tammy, the biggest surprise came when she phoned our telecenter and discovered that Leanne was there, waiting for the call.
A lady came to the phone and she says, hello. And I said, hello. I said, who's this? And she goes, this is Leanne. And I was too excited to cry. I was just too excited to do anything. I said, oh my God, Leanne. I said, this is Tammy. And I don't even remember what we said. The first thing I think I remember her saying was that she loved me.
This is the happiest time of my life. And I just feel like we're so young. They're 22 and 23, I'm 32. We have a whole life ahead of us, and we're all healthy, and we're very fortunate that we could find each other.
Next, the disturbing story of a government official suspected of murdering his entire family. March 2nd, 1976, Columbia, North Carolina. A state park ranger responded to an urgent report of a brush fire in a remote wooded area. As the ranger brought the fire under control, he found the disturbing calling cards of an arsonist. An empty gas can and a shovel. When the smoke cleared, the ranger was shocked to discover evidence of murder as well. In a shallow grave, he found the remains of 5 partially charred bodies, 3 young boys and 2 women. A thorough investigation of this shocking crime turned up few clues. 2 articles of the victim's clothing bore the labels of expensive department stores in Bethesda, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. The shovel came from a hardware store in the same area. The Bethesda police had no missing persons report they could link to the bodies until 6 days later.
Safety Unit 12.
Unit 12, base, go ahead.
Pursuit to 4316 Lily
March the 8th, 1976. I received a radio call to investigate the absence of 5 persons from a residence in Bethesda.
Unit 12, direct, we're proceeding.
The call had come from a neighbor of William Bradford Bishop, a respected economist with the State Department.
There was a common driveway to the neighbor's home and to the Bishop home, and I met the neighbor there to investigate the whereabouts of the family.
Mrs. Williams?
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Joe Sargent.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
You called in a missing person report?
Yeah, the Bishops. I haven't seen them for at least a week, and I'm getting very worried.
Is there anything unusual that why you wouldn't see them for a certain length of time?
Well, it's not unusual for them to go out of town, but what's unusual is usually when they go out of town, they let me know that they're going out of town because I pick up their newspapers for them and I water their plants. This time, nothing. I haven't heard anything.
You said you had the keys?
Yes, I sure do.
May I have them, please?
Yes.
Okay, I don't see any reason why I can't go in and look around and make sure everything is okay.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
Why
if
don't you just
did.
wait right here?
Okay, thank you.
It was rather routine to do an investigation like this. It's not unusual. And I wasn't overly concerned about it until I reached the front step of the home and I noticed there were blood droplets on the front step. Upon opening the front door, I saw blood droplets leading from the doorway through the foyer and to a set of stairs that led to the upper bedroom level of the home. And going to the stairs, I observed blood splatterings on the wall and in the one bedroom that I could see into without going any farther into the scene. Almost the entire ceiling and wall was completely splattered with blood. Hardly a place you could put your hand there wasn't blood splatterings. I'd been a police officer for approximately 12 years, and this was the worst scene that I've ever observed.
Authorities were finally able to identify the 5 bodies found the week before in North Carolina. The victims were Brad Bishop's wife, Annette, his 3 sons, and his mother. There was no sign of Brad Bishop. The Bishops, who had seemed to be such a perfect family, had been ripped apart by unfathomable violence. Brad Bishop grew up in Pasadena, California. In 1959, he graduated from Yale University. Within a few months, Brad married Annette Weiss, his high school sweetheart. By the mid-1970s, Brad and Annette had 3 sons, and Brad was the State Department's Director of Commercial Practices and Trade. To most of his co-workers, Brad Bishop seemed to be on the fast track to a high-level State Department job. But at least one co-worker saw a different side of Brad Bishop.
Brad Bishop had extensive experience overseas. He liked the international scene from the time he was in the Army in Italy. Brad's career was very much on track, although he was exceedingly despondent about not getting a promotion.
Brad Bishop and Roy Harrell ran into one another just outside the State Department on the day the annual promotion list had come out.
Oh, you haven't seen you for a while.
I've been kind of busy, Roy.
What's the matter?
I didn't make the promotion list again.
Neither did I.
Yeah, well, I'm more qualified than you are.
Brad, I think that's a subjective...
He readily apologized. He said, I think I'm getting the flu. I don't feel well at all, and that's the reason I'm leaving work now.
And look, and when you come back, we'll have lunch sometime next week and talk about it, okay?
Okay.
Let's get a taxi.
So I helped him hail a taxi, and I watched him drive out.
The next day, Brad Bishop's family would be found dead in North Carolina. Bishop himself would drop from sight.
Take care. See you Monday.
March 18th, almost 3 weeks after the murders, a ranger at the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee discovered an abandoned station wagon. In the back, he found what appeared to be dried blood. The car was registered to William Bradford Bishop. Bishop now became the primary suspect in the slaying of his own family.
The courts will have to determine whether Brad Bishop is guilty of killing his family. But there was enough evidence in March of 1976 for a warrant to be issued for his arrest for homicide based on the fact that there appeared to be premeditation in connection with the events that occurred on March 1st.
The FBI believes they had pieced together Bishop's activities leading up to the murders. On the day he left the State Department, Bishop withdrew several $100s from his bank account and apparently went to a local hardware store.
Bishop went to a gas station in Bethesda where he purchased the can full of gas. And as far as we know, after that he returned to his home, probably around 7:30 to 8 o'clock at night after the children were put to bed.
Our investigation shows that Mrs. Bishop was probably killed first. She was found beside a book which she may have been reading at the time that she was killed. The children were probably killed next, followed by Bishop's mother. They were all killed with a blunt instrument, and none of the victims had an opportunity to defend themselves.
According to the FBI, Bishop loaded the 5 bodies into the family station wagon and left Bethesda, Maryland. He headed 200 miles south to the sparsely populated countryside near Columbia, North Carolina.
My belief, murder being a crime of passion, that many, many people are capable of the same thing. It's just sometimes certain people just flip out faster and do these things.
Brad Bishop felt from the time I knew him that there was something lacking in himself. This feeling was nourished constantly by both his mother and, to some degree, his wife, who constantly told him he was inadequate and washed up and wasn't going anywhere in his career. And I think that he conceived in his mind this was a way to, as he's often said many times about other people, this would be a way of putting them in their place.
The FBI believes that Bishop, after buying a pair of tennis shoes near the site of the fire, drove 400 miles to the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, where his station wagon was found abandoned.
Bishop had the advantage. The bodies were discovered on the 2nd. The car was discovered on the 18th. So Bishop had plenty of time in order to escape. There was no indication of any suicide. There was no indication of any accident. And we have every reason to believe that he, in fact, disappeared from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park after the car was abandoned there.
Brad Bishop successfully covered his tracks and was not seen for 2 years. In 1978, 5,000 miles away on a different continent, a nearly unbelievable chance encounter took place. Roy Harrell, the last man to see Bishop before the murders, came face to face with him again in Sorrento, Italy.
I had gone to the Piazza Tasso Square in Sorrento to board a bus bound for Rome. I decided to go to the men's room before starting that journey, and I was washing my hands, and this bearded disheveled-looking man came in. In my mind's eye, I took the beard and the scrubby clothes off of him, and I saw the Brad Bishop I had seen coming out of the State Department.
You're Brad Bishop, aren't you? Brad, why don't you get on the bus with me and come back to Rome?
Oh my God. No!
Brad, come back! Come back! I followed him and watched him disappear down the cliffs going toward the boat landing where boats go to Capri.
Did Brad Bishop brutally murder his own family? If he did, we can only speculate about what could have possibly caused him to commit such an unspeakable crime. Unless Brad Bishop is found, the truth will remain unknown. William Bradford Bishop is 6 feet 1 inch tall, with brown hair, brown eyes, and a medium build. He is fluent in French, Italian, and Serbo-Croatian, and holds a diplomatic passport. At the time of the murders, he was 40 years old. The FBI has created this computer-aged photograph to reflect how Bishop might look today at 54. When we return, the legend of an Indian massacre and a fortune in gold still waiting to be found in the Arizona desert. There's an old saying among fortune hunters. As long as a man believes there's a treasure to be found, he'll be spurred on by the belief that he'll be the one to find it. It seems that people have been forever obsessed with the prospect of uncovering legendary buried treasure. This never-ending quest to strike it rich has fueled a million dreams, each with a common goal of instant wealth. The Arizona Territory, September 1864. Troopers from Fort Apache find 2 prospectors wandering in the desert. By the time they reach the fort, the men are barely alive.
We gotta go back. We gotta go back.
One of the prospectors, known only as Adams, tells the Army surgeon a remarkable tale.
You don't understand. There's mountains of gold up there. There's a river full of gold up there. There's gold up there the size of acorns.
About 2 weeks ago, me and my men rode up the Gila River, up into the mountains, was looking for a zigzag canyon, a canyon that was supposed to be full of gold.
Adams and his band of 20 miners were led by a Mexican guide nicknamed Gotcha.
Gotcha, where's that canyon at?
Gotcha had promised to take Adams to the gold in return for 2 horses, a saddle, 2 $50 gold pieces, and a red silk bandana. He even said the miners could shoot him if he couldn't find the gold.
This canyon don't go nowhere. If you've been lying to me, you're gonna pay for it.
Eventually, they reached what appeared to be a dead end. But Gotcha led the party through a hidden portal into a narrow zigzag canyon.
I think Gotcha played the major role in getting them to the site. And the reason he was able to do this was the fact that he was raised by the Apaches, and he knew the area, and he was familiar with the fact that gold was important to the white man, not so important to the Apache.
Inside the canyon, the men found a stream fed by a 20-foot-high waterfall. The stream was brimming with what they had come for.
Go! Go!
There was a waterfall there, and there was sufficient water. But the amazing thing, and according to a story again, the gold was visible right on the ground. Realizing that gold is heavy, that it settles down, you'd have to think, well, how much gold was there? If there was still gold visibly on the ground, that means every flash flood that brought water over that waterfall has brought more gold from above.
Adams and his men agreed to pool the fortune and share it equally. They set up camp and the prospecting commenced. Several days later, unexpected visitors arrived. local Apache chieftain named Nana and 20 of his warriors.
Adams, we got company.
The Apache, there were several things that were sacred to them. One thing, mountains, all mountains. The Zigzag Canyon probably, undoubtedly, was sacred maybe in some way because it was part of the mountain.
Teote, Mata, Mate, Nana.
The Apaches believed that gold was the tears of the sun. Nobody touched the tears of the sun because the sun was the almighty thing to most Indian cultures. I mean, it's the source of all life.
Hand me that rifle. A gift.
They met with Chief Nana, and Nana had set down these rules that they do not go above the waterfall for whatever reason, probably because he knew there was more gold up there, and he knew it would attract more white men to the area. He hoped they would fill their pokes and leave and not come back.
Adams struck a deal with Chief Nana. Any miner found above the waterfalls would die at the hands of the Indians. But one morning, a miner chasing a stray horse ventured above the falls.
Look what I found, Adam.
He came across a gold nugget the size of a hen egg.
Ain't that the biggest nugget you ever seen?
Oh, it sure is. Where'd you get this at, son?
Up yonder.
Above the falls? You went above the falls?
Adams, he didn't mean no harm.
My horse got away, Adam.
I don't care. I promised the chief we wouldn't go up there. You're gonna get us all killed. You understand me? Take this and get back to work.
No, you keep it.
Get out of here, go on. All of y'all, go on,
The
get out of here.
discovery fueled gold fever in the camp. Unbeknownst to Adams, the other miners began accumulating gold from both above and below the falls. Some of the gold was stored in a coffee pot hidden beneath the flagstone of the camp fireplace. According to legend, the miners amassed as much as 300 pounds of gold, worth nearly $1.5 million. One morning, Adams and his partner Davidson were a mile out of camp when they heard the sound of dwindling gunfire. Chief Nana had been true to his word. From a lookout above camp, Adams and Davidson stared down helplessly.
I can take this one right here.
No, it ain't gonna do us no good now. Just wait till things settle down, then we'll head on up the canyon. Get out of here. We waited till the sun went down, and we snuck up the canyon. You don't believe any of this, do you? We're about to go. Look at this.
Well, Adams, like many prospectors, spent the rest of his life searching for that Zigzag Canyon and never could find it. I think that once a person sees that much gold in a place, like Adams had, he couldn't give up that dream. There's no way. He knew it was there. He had to continue to search for it till he found it.
Adams never did find his mother lode. Years later, he died drunk and penniless, and the story of the lost gold grew into legend. In the 1920s, a railroad man named John Mitchell began an extensive search for the treasure. His writings are the basis for today's ongoing quest for the lost Adams diggings. Ron Feldman is a camping guide who has studied Mitchell's accounts for years.
I've always been hooked on the lost Adams, and it was John Mitchell's story that intrigued me. And I kind of reread that several times, and if you pay attention to what John Mitchell says, he tells you basically where the lost Adams diggings is.
By comparing Mitchell's references with modern-day maps, Feldman discovered that many rivers and landmarks had gone under different names in previous years. He determined that Adams Canyon lay on Eagle Creek near the tiny town of Clifton, Arizona, 200 miles north of Tucson. In January of 1990, Ron Feldman and geologist Mick McPherson journeyed to Eagle Creek hoping to find the lost Adams fortune.
When Ron and I walked into the canyon and discovered the little hidden portal that led into a zigzag canyon, my feeling immediately was that this was the spot. This is where Adams had been. This fits the stories that I've read. It has the right appearance, and it is an appropriate place where gold could have been concentrated in great quantities as a placer deposit.
Everything about the canyon seemed to fit Adams' descriptions.
That's got to be the waterfall.
It's got to be it.
Feldman and McPherson even found a trickle along the canyon wall where a waterfall had once flowed.
If you put more water into the system, as there was when Adams was there, you would have a beautiful cascading waterfall into an open pool at the base of the fall. It's very hard to explain the feeling that rushed through me. It was very exciting. And of course, we both knew the legend of the coffee pot full of gold buried in the floor of the cabin. We soon discovered the ruins of a cabin, started digging in the floor. We found some relics, but no pot full of gold.
Look at that. Huh? Old gold pan.
I haven't
Somebody
seen
was
one
panning
that
gold.
old for a long time. I wonder if there's anything else here. I don't know.
Feldman and McPherson also found the tools needed for making horseshoes and a section of railroad track.
In the early days, John D. Mitchell, the author, was actually a railroad man. He worked on the railroads, and we thought of Mitchell when we found those items. We thought of Mitchell when we didn't find the pot of gold.
Could John Mitchell have found the coffee pot of gold and perhaps written his history of the legend in a way to mislead others? Ron Feldman and Mick McPherson are convinced they have unlocked the secret of the treasure's location, and the mother lode of gold is still waiting to be found. However, other fortune hunters feel that Feldman and McPherson are wrong, and the lost Adams diggings may actually be in another part of the state. On our next Unsolved Mysteries, the many faces of Patrick Michael Mitchell, ladies' man, gourmet cook, notorious bank robber. His ingenious and daring heists have netted close to $3 million and earned him a prominent place on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Join me next time. Perhaps you hold the key. Perhaps you can help solve a mystery.
Thank you.